Before we get to today's show, we have a request. If you like this podcast, please go like us, rate us highly on the podcast platform that you're listening to, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, Overcast. This is the currency of popularity in the podcast world. We would love it if you gave us a great review. We would love it even more if you wrote us a glowing review. Also, one more note. Following this season on war, we have a new season in the works. We're going to swerve away from war and go in the exact opposite direction. We're going to do a season on love, brotherly love, romantic love, familial love, Christian love. So be looking for that in the coming months. And now, without further delay, on with today's show.
The spy rode into the dark of the woods and dismounted. He crawled upward on his belly over cool rocks out into the sunlight. And suddenly he was in the open and could see for miles. And there was the whole vast army below him, filling the valley like a smoking river. It came out of a blue rainstorm in the east and overflowed the narrow valley road, coiling along a stream, narrowing and choking at a white bridge, fading out into the yellowish dust of June, but still visible on the farther road beyond the blue hills, spiked with flags and guidons like a great, chopped, bristly snake, the snake ending headless in a blue wall of summer rain. The spy tucked himself behind a boulder and began counting flags. Must be 20,000 men, visible all at once. 2 whole Union corps. Those are the opening lines from Killer Angels by Michael Shaara. Welcome to Hot Takes on the Classics, a gossipy gallop through the best books ever written. My name is Emily Maeda, and I am joined by Tim McIntosh. And you have clearly joined us during our season on war. But what war was that a reference to? Tim.
The Civil War, Emily, the Civil War. And here, I've got a counter question for you.
Okay.
What battle was the turning point of the Civil War?
I am going to say the battle is the Battle of Gettysburg.
It's the Battle of Gettysburg, which is what our book. It is a leading question, considering that's what our book is about. I want to kind of set the stage for what was happening in the United States previous to these 3 days that the Battle of Gettysburg was fought. This is it. Think about, Emily, if you want to do a little thought experiment, how different the world would be if these 3 days of battles had gone in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a particular moment, there's probably 5 minutes in this battle that had those 5 minutes gone in a different direction, we would be living in a very, very different world, like a very different world.
It's that they do the same thought experiment around World War II and the British entering the war, right? Do you know May 19?
No, I don't know about this.
Yeah, when the French troops fall, right, and it's only Britain holding out against Germany. Is Britain going to capitulate and do the same as France, or are they going to fight on? And when that gets decided, right, it's decisive for the battle. So in a like manner, this is somewhat similar to that. Like, this is a decisive, or at least we look back on it and say it's a decisive moment.
In the United States, there would be no more united in the States. There would be a fracture from top and bottom. That would have made the United States a lot more susceptible to enemy invasions. But the big deal is it would have legitimized slavery among the southern states, and how this would have caused, aside from the just gross injustice of it, all of the ramifications of the economic decision around that. It's for me, it's such a complex thought experiment. My mind almost kind of hits a brick wall. I can't go very far in imagining like how different life would have been if these 5 minutes that we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast went in a different direction. Let me tell you though first, Emily, just a little bit about what happens leading up to these 3 days. Before the Battle of Gettysburg, there's largely a stalemate occurring in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
The big trouble is that the Union government, namely Abraham Lincoln, has got huge pressure on him. Not only because he's losing men, he's losing soldiers, it's a massive, massive cost, and he has huge pressure to end the war quickly.
Because this is 1863, so it's been going on for 3 years, right?
It's been going on for a long time.
It doesn't seem as if anything's getting decided.
Right. To make matters worse, the Confederate general, Robert E. Lee, has moved northward. He's moved his army northward, and he's attempting to invade the North. So this would have been a massive, massive change in momentum. So instead of fighting on Southern soil, the battles would then be on Union soil, putting even more pressure on Lincoln because food and supplies would be taken from Union farms, from Northern farms. This is going to cause more unrest among the populace. They're already frustrated that things are not advancing more quickly. So there's a massive amount of pressure on Lincoln to fight and to fight quickly. And he's had a series of generals that have just not really wanted to fight.
They haven't been awesome. But, likewise, Lee has a lot of pressure on him as well, right? Which is part of the reason that he tries to take the war to the North, because he recognizes that he's outmanned, right? They don't have enough people to really do it.
Right.
So they're both under pressure, which is what sort of sets up the intensity of the battle.
And we heard the opening lines of the book, which you just read. In Pennsylvania, these two massive armies, Confederate and Union, are now getting really, really close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this book tells the story of July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863, the days of the Battle of Gettysburg. Emily, the book is incredible.
It's incredible.
It is such an incredible book. It won the Pulitzer Prize in 1975. It was adapted into a film in 1993. The film's name was Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
That movie, just by itself, won 8 Emmy nominations and won 4 of those nominations. The book has been required reading at military institutions. It's a work of historical fiction.
That's crazy. That is really crazy.
Including the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. It has been a required reading text at West Point. So
interesting.
The author said the purpose of him writing the book was this, quote, "I wrote this book to know what it was like to be there, what the weather was like, what the men's faces looked like." And that, for me, is what makes this book so special. So Michael Shaara, spelled Shaara, has a real gift, not just for research. He clearly did his research, but he has an incredible gift for characterization, for plot, for conflict. And he tells this story mainly through the eyes of the generals who are fighting in the war. For the sake of our conversation, Emily, I'm just going to concentrate on 2 generals from the Confederate side and 1 actually non-general from the Union side. So most of the characters are generals, but there's a couple of exceptions, and Shaara makes those exceptions for very important reasons. So let's first talk about the 2 main Confederate generals, Robert E. Lee and James Longstreet. They were, in real life and in the book, close friends, deep respect. But Shaara takes a little bit of a liberty when he imagines the interactions between these 2 men. First, let me kind of set the stage about, I'm from the South, right? Robert E. Lee, for the longest time, I think it's probably abating a little bit now, has been esteemed in the South as sort of like the pinnacle of manly virtue. In fact, Emily, I have a joke I want to tell you. Are you ready to hear this joke?
Sure.
I hope you'll laugh. It may just be like
that's a lot
you
of
may have to be
pressure.
Southern to.
That's
it
a
is.
lot of pressure.
If you don't laugh, just I'll understand. I should only tell this joke to Southerners, right?
Flat. Okay, let's hear it.
Young man early one morning is standing on a bridge looking over, and this woman drives by, an older woman, and she rolls down her window and she says, "Young man, you're not going to do what I think you're going to do, are you?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am. And no reason to live. I just don't see the point." And she said, "Well, think about your daddy. What would your daddy say if he knew that you jumped off a bridge?" And he said, "Ma'am, I've never known my daddy. He left before I was born." And she said, "Well, what about your mama? Son, what would your mama say if you leapt to your own death? How heartbroken and disappointed she would be." "I haven't seen my mama since she started drinking 2 years ago. I never see my mama." So the woman in the car is kind of stuck. And so she's like, "Who can I appeal to?" And she thinks, "I've got it." So she leaned out the window and she said, "Young man, if you can't do it for your mama, if you can't do it for your daddy, stay for Robert E. Lee." And the young man said, "Who's Robert E. Lee?" And then the woman said, "Well, son, you might as well go ahead and jump."
That's a little bit of a dark joke. Is that really
a joke? It is a dark joke.
Gee
but
whiz.
you can hear the esteem. You can hear the esteem, right?
Right,
like
yeah,
incredible
definitely.
esteem for Robert E. Lee.
Well, I think you have to say that even in the North, Robert E. Lee is esteemed. Robert E.
Oh, is that true? Is that true?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, we can see like the monument thing happening now, but like, doesn't everybody like Robert E. Lee unless you're maybe a super woke purist?
Well, I think even if you're not a super woke purist, I still think that you might be like, wait, why did he side with the Confederacy? And we could give the reasons why. Like there's a strong, he can't fight against his own people.
Because
that's like a huge issue for him.
That's his thing. And it's not just the United States, it's Virginians, right? He's a teacher at West Point and he resigns. I don't know. I think a lot of people respect Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's not rah for slavery, right? It's his people.
No. Right.
And
that's
so
right.
From that standpoint, I put him in a different camp than like Stonewall Jackson, who
absolutely Jefferson Davis.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, very different. Very different.
So Robert E. Lee, I think, still garners a lot of respect.
On the Union side, we're going to mainly focus not on a general, but on a colonel named Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. Wait, who does?
The Union generals. They in general suck. They're terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Joshua Chamberlain a little bit later, but right now I want to talk about this conflict that happens in the book between Robert E. Lee and General Longstreet. So remember, Emily, we have been talking about how much in the 19th century war is changing. War is changing drastically. We heard about it when we discussed War and Peace. We heard about it when we discussed Clausewitz's On War. And in this book, the representative of the new way of doing war is General Longstreet. So I want to just kind of describe this, what his view of war is. So the night before the battle, Longstreet, Confederate, is in a very dark mood, and he sees that Robert E. Lee is going to attack in the morning. Robert E. Lee wants to attack. He wants desperately to be in conflict with the Union.
He's a little bit more forward momentum than some of, right? He's going to go and just like him bringing the war to Pennsylvania.
That's right.
He's not Kutuzov, right?
He's not Kutuzov. That's right.
He's going to go and he doesn't shy away from battle. Lee.
Longstreet, though, really disagrees with this tactic because Longstreet, according to the author, according to Shaara, sees the future of warfare, and the future of warfare is defense, not offense. It's dig a deep trench, hold an area, wait for the enemy to charge. And what's the main reason why defensive warfare is so important in Longstreet's mind? It's because technologically war has so different.
It's so different. Well, I think that the rule of thumb is that you need 3-to-1 ratio of troops if you're going to go on the offensive now, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, in modern warfare, the thought, so you can have far fewer people, which matches what the South's capabilities are. You can have far fewer people and hold a defense. You have to have 3 times the number of men to take a position when people are entrenched.
The big reason is the musket is being replaced with the rifle. And
right.
It sounds like a relatively small change. This is a huge change.
It's a huge change.
Emily, have you ever shot a BB gun before?
Well, I mean, a little bit. I can't really say done it a lot.
You're not like a marksman. Nobody is a marksman with a BB gun because a BB gun operates kind of like a musket operates.
Right.
You put the little BB in the chamber, and when it fires, it can go in any number of directions because it's a long pipe, but it will be spinning when it comes out. And it could be a curveball down or to the left. It could be up and to the right. You never really know.
Right.
So the accuracy of muskets is very suspect. Now, rifle technology is very different. Rifle technology has this long bore, but it spins a torpedo-shaped bullet that has great accuracy. So like a musket ball was a BB coming out of a drinking straw, but a rifle is a projectile that is spinning like a football, and the accuracy has improved dramatically.
Right, and its fireability and all of those things, right? So you can reload.
That's right. You reload from the breech, not from the barrel. That's a huge improvement. So in the book, Killer Angels, Longstreet sees this. He has the foresight to see this. And so in one episode, and I'm going to read it to us, he's talking with a British officer named Fremantle. Why is a British officer in the American Civil War? Well, this would happen all the time. You would get people from foreign countries observing the war because you never know when you're going to be in a war yourself.
Same thing happens now. Same thing happens now.
Queen sends this officer, Fremantle, to research the Civil War. So he's talking with Longstreet, and here's the section that I want to read to us. Longstreet is speaking to Fremantle. Honor, without intelligence, said General Longstreet, is a disaster. Honor could lose the war. Fremantle, by the way, Emily, shocked at hearing this, like impugning honor to a Brit. Are you serious?
It sounds a little Clausewitzian, doesn't it?
It sounds a little Clausewitzian. So Longstreet continues. I appreciate honor and bravery and courage, Longstreet said, but the point of the war is not to show how brave you are and how you can die in manly fashion, face to the enemy. God knows it's easy to die. Anybody can die. In the darkness, he could not see Fremantle's face, so he talked to the darkness. Try to see this. When we were all young, they fought in a simple way. They faced out in the open, usually across a field. One side came running, the other got shot in from a close distance because the rifle wasn't very good at a distance because it wasn't a rifle. Then, after that, one shot they hit together hand to hand or sword to sword, and the cavalry would ride in from one angle or another. That's the truth, isn't it? In the old days, they fought from a distance with bows and arrows and ran at each other, man to man, with swords. But now, listen, now it's quite a bit different. And quite a few people don't seem to know that yet. Look, right now, take a man with a good rifle. A good man with a good rifle, which has a good range, and may even be a repeater. He can kill at, conservatively, 200 or 300 yards, shooting into the crowd attacking him. Forget the cannon. Just put one man behind the tree. You can hardly see him from 200 yards away, but he can see you and shoot again. Now, if you're attacking uphill, Longstreet broke it off. No point in talking this way to a foreigner. Might have to fight him sometime.
Yeah,
that's a great little
keep
close.
Your thoughts to yourself because who knows when it might be the British you're fighting.
But you can tell in the context of this scene that he's kind of talking in his own mind to General Lee, like, listen, I admire the honor. I admire the courage, the bravery, but war is different now.
Yeah.
So we're seeing in this book, Emily, an incredible transformation of the way that men fight. War used to be a clash won by superior forces, yes, but it required honor and bravery, and you could see your enemy's eyes, and killing him meant you had to fight hand to hand, odds were.
Which we've seen that. Before you go on, back to that quote, there's also a lot of foreshadowing in that quote, isn't there?
There is.
Because the uphill battle, it's going to be Pickett's charge, isn't it?
Exactly right. That's right.
And he's saying, this is never going to work. But he is foreshadowing sort of the decisive moment, isn't he?
That's exactly right. And that's part of why this book is, it's not just the characterization is great.
Why he's done a great job. Yeah.
The structure of the plot is so intelligently put together.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a second reason why I wanted to read that section. That reason is that this is an imagined conversation.
Of course.
It's not history, right?
Right.
This is a work of historical fiction, and in this part of the book, Shaara is taking some liberties. Now, before I go on, a little kind of like a mental register in our mind. Emily, imagine like your screen, a line running from left to right across your screen. This is a continuum of historical fiction. On the left, that's books of historical fiction that are not really based in anything other than like the soup of history, the milieu of history.
Right.
So I'm writing a book, let's say, on whaling in the 19th century.
Yeah.
And it's a love story. Okay, so my main characters meet on the shore before, the guy goes off whaling or something like this. I've just kind of plopped my characters down into a setting.
Right.
And they're dressed in the 19th century garb, but nothing else is really...
You're not dealing with historical fact or, an event may occur, but it's not central to the telling of the story.
That's right. Now, on the right side of your screen is on the continuum of historical fiction. This is much more leaning into history.
Actual facts.
Research, actual facts. And Shaara belongs on the right side of that continuum.
Yeah.
He really wants to get it right, but he knows, we all know, to tell this story the way that he wants to tell it, he has to take liberties. He has to imagine Longstreet speaking to this British officer and what that might have sounded like.
This is a little bit like Thucydides with his reported speeches, right? Way back to the Peloponnesian Wars.
Great comparison.
Where he's bringing in these speeches that definitely occurred, but nobody was there writing it down verbatim, right?
Right. That's right.
He's getting at the heart of it. Even what Mark Twain did with Joan of Arc, which probably is a little bit to the left of Shaara, but still very much based upon research. But he's going to have characters who are having conversations that nobody heard. Right. That weren't written down.
Right. In the book, Shaara makes Longstreet into kind of like a thwarted genius. If Lee had just followed him, the Confederates might have won. But I just want to be clear. This is an interpretation, and historians have kind of made the case that Lee's strategy at Gettysburg were often thwarted by his own generals, his own lieutenants, rather than other people say like Stonewall Jackson, for as like nasty a character as he was a really fine general, and he worked really well in conjunction with Lee. So if he had still had Stonewall Jackson and better understood battlefield tactic, according to Lee, they might have won. So Killer Angel's portrayal of Longstreet is maybe a little bit sympathetic.
Well,
maybe too sympathetic.
Is Longstreet a cipher? Is he a little bit of a cipher for Shaara's own views? Or maybe not his own views, but a bit of a cipher for what Shaara maybe saw as flaws in Lee's strategy. Is that true?
Maybe so. Maybe so. Shaara died not long after the book was published, and I'm sure people would love to ask him that question.
Yeah, right.
But it's a reasonable hypothesis that Longstreet is a bit of a cipher for Shaara's own vision of like what went poorly and what went well at the battle.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Or just the facts that people didn't take into consideration, right? I mean, that's what Longstreet is giving voice to.
if you're reading Killer Angels for the first time, and I want to encourage you, it's not a long book. It's so easy to read. You'll pick it up and put it down like 4 days later, and you'll be done with it, and you'll love every second of it. If you read Killer Angels, put aside the historical veracity while you're reading it. And if you want to poke around about like, okay, where do historians think our author kind of veered away or took too many liberties with facts, do that afterwards. But I encourage you, give yourself over to the book. It will reward you.
Yeah. That's always
Emily,
that's always a good piece of advice.
It is.
Always a good piece of advice.
Let's turn to the hero from the Union side. That is Union Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain is an officer in the Union Army, and like so many officers in that day, he was a very decorated, accomplished person before he was enlisted. He was a teacher of rhetoric. He was born in Maine, and the title of the book comes from a little episode from his academic career. So, and this is of course a real historical character. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Killer Angels. Where did the name come from? And let me give you a little bit of text from the book. Here we go. Once, Joshua Chamberlain had a speech memorized from Shakespeare and gave it proudly. His father listening, but not looking, and Chamberlain remembered it still. What a piece of work is man. In action, how like an angel. And his father, grinning, had scratched his head and then said stiffly, well, boy, if he's an angel, he's sure a murdering angel. And Chamberlain had gone on to school to make an oration on the subject. Man, the killer angel. Emily, do you know where that Shakespeare's from?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Where is it? Oh, it's like...
Wait, are you being silly or do you not know?
No, I'm being serious, but it's maybe because it's Friday afternoon and I can't think. Because where is it from?
Oh, you know exactly where it's from.
I know.
It's Hamlet.
What's
what
Hamlet?
A piece of work is made. Yeah,
gosh,
right?
Darn it. That's so embarrassing.
You knew that. You know. That's... So,
don't you hate? I'm getting too old. I feel like sometimes like I hear it and then I can't recall it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What piece of
Believe
work?
Me.
So annoying.
Believe me, I know. I have a 2-year-old at home, so that means like less sleep than usual. And I'm always like, where's my memory going? It's going to my daughter. That's where it's going.
Okay, well, I have a 5-year-old and I was up 2 hours last night, so that's my excuse.
Oh. Okay, we'll talk about that off the air.
Yeah.
Okay. Emily, second day of the battle. I'm going to take us right into these 5 minutes that we talked about at the beginning of the show. These 5 minutes that settle the Battle of Gettysburg. Happens on July 3rd at about 4 p.m. There is an attack from the Confederate Army on Little Round Top. Little Round Top is one of 2 hills, not even really mountains, located up off the battlefield. Big Round Top, Little Round Top. And Robert E. Lee gives the order to attack Little Round Top. So,
now,
here's why it's so important.
Yeah. It's they have an entrenched, strong position, the Union.
They do.
Yeah,
the Union
that's
has
trouble.
A great position.
Right?
And the Confederates know that it's a great position.
Yeah.
And they're going to send everything they've got. I mean, everything they've got. And if they flank the end of the Union line, the line is probably going to get attacked not only from the side, but if they can, the Confederates will begin to attack from behind. This is what you don't want in military tactics.
Right.
You want to hold a line and have the end of the line buttressed by some geographical feature, a forest, a lake, something, so the army cannot get, or the attacking army can't get around. If they get around, now you're taking fire from the front, from the side, or worst case scenario,
from behind,
from the back. So, Colonel Joshua Chamberlain has been given orders by his commanding officer, under no circumstances can you let the Confederate Army get around this flank.
Now, don't go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I'm thinking, don't you think that Lee sort of, his plan is that, I mean, his only hope is that the Union troops get overwhelmed and sort of lose their mind, right? Because if they get overwhelmed and lose their mind, then they won't. But like, other than that, how are they going to do this? It's just not going to work.
I think it's just raw numbers. It's just attrition.
Right.
Lee is just like, I've got to throw everything at them. And if I flank
and if they
them,
can break,
then I've probably got the battle.
I've got it. Yeah.
And let's just play it out. It's not just if I get the hill, then I like flank them. But if I get the hill, I flank them, I win today's battle.
Yeah.
I win tomorrow's battle. I march on Washington.
Yeah.
I make Lincoln
you
stop.
Have momentum.
You can see everything is hanging on this attack at Little Round Top. I might be exaggerating slightly, but not much.
I think you're
the
right.
The stakes couldn't possibly be higher.
And Lee that's where Lee has been brilliant, is he has broken the Union time and time again by doing things like this, right?
Yes,
by being audacious, and doing things that sort of aren't expected or whatever. But it is because the Union sort of loses their mind. It's a little bit like what happens with the French at the Battle of Agincourt. They kind of lose their mind, you know? So, I mean, that's kind of, keep going. Because that's a little bit what Chamberlain's going to do, is he's not going to lose his mind.
He doesn't lose his mind. But
he
Emily,
keeps himself.
Wave after wave after wave of Confederate soldiers keep charging up the hill. He's got to keep a line, but he's losing men. He's losing tons of men. And he keeps stretching out his line farther and farther and farther. And at one point, his brother, Tom, who is like who reports to Joshua Chamberlain, he's like, there's a hole in the line. I've only got one person to plug that with. I've got to stick my brother in the hole in the line. And just think about this. Think about this. Like a brother, a sister. Like, you have no choice as their commanding officer but to put them in this gap in the line. So he plugs Tom in. Now, Emily, things have gone from terrible to even worse, because guess what happens? Chamberlain's regiment runs out of ammunition.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
What's going to happen?
Oh, Emily, I'm so glad you asked. But you know what? Let's take a break.
What's going to happen? Okay.
Let's take a break first.
Because we don't know what actually happens, right? We don't actually know what happens here.
Oh, no. Yes, we do know. We know exactly what happens.
I'm just kidding. It's a joke from history. It's a historical joke.
Hey, now is a great time to stock up on reading. And there's no better place to go than Classical Academic Press, or Classical U. That's U, just one letter, U. And get 10% off any product purchase. Well, except digital products or bundle packages. Let's not be crazy, Emily. On all Classical Academic Press and Classical U offerings. They have great curriculum opportunities. They've got like Latin readers. I know that you're a Latin student. This is a great place for you to go. So go Classical Academic Press or classicalu.com and use the coupon code Hot Takes. All one word, all lowercase, Hot Takes. Get 10% off your next purchase. Emily?
What happens? I mean, like, what happens?
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read what Joshua Chamberlain decides to do. Here it is. Here's the text. Chamberlain said to his officers, "If we don't hold, they go right on by and over the hill, and the whole flank caves in." Chamberlain looked from face to face. The enormity of it, the weight of the line, was a mass too great to express, but he could see it as clearly as a broad, wide vision, a biblical dream. If the line broke here, then the hill was gone. All these boys from Pennsylvania, New York, hit from behind, above. Once the hill went, the flank of the army went. Good God! He could see troops running. He could see the blue flood, the bloody tide. Only one recourse. Can't go back. Can't stay where we are. Result inevitable. The idea formed. fix bayonets.
Intense.
So he calls out to his men. They have no ammunition. Fix bayonets. At this point, there's just like a smattering of men left in his regiment. They fix bayonets, Emily, and they charge. They charge against the Confederates. And Emily, it's incredible reading it. This is like, for me, the highlight of the book. The Confederate Army, which was at this point really beleaguered, the attacking force was really beleaguered. And now these guys are charging downhill with bayonet. The Confederates see what's happening. They turn and they retreat. And they run.
They lose their minds.
They lose their minds. That's right.
Like it hinged on that moment. Yeah, it's so back to Longstreet's quote that you read at the beginning. This is exactly what he's talking about, because the Union is defensive, right?
Yeah.
And the South just doesn't have the troops. And then when they go on the offensive after this back and forth fight all day long, then the attacking troops are not prepared for it. And it completely disconcerting. And
it wins the day.
It's kind of over. Yeah. And that's it.
The next day, they want to give Chamberlain a break. This is kind of one of the, I don't know what you would call it, maybe an irony. They want to give Chamberlain a break. Like, the Union Army understands what he has done. And they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe your men, heavy losses, but you held the flank, incredible. We're going to put you in the safest place in the whole army. We're going to put you dead center of the line tomorrow. And guess what happens? That's when Lee decides he's going to charge the center of the line. Right? It's crazy. It's crazy. Chamberlain saw 2 days of the heaviest fighting of the whole war, and he emerged.
And he lives.
And he lives. You know what, Emily? This is a setup for my hot take.
Oh, wait. But what if I want to ask? What if?
Oh, please, yeah. Before we get to our hot take, fire away. Pardon the pun, but fire away.
You're just moving so fast. That's one of those pieces. It's sort of build up for our next recording, like the chances of war, right? You see that so well in this historical retelling. I loved reading it for that reason. Just like the seeming nuance that why is he at the too decisive moment, right?
Yeah.
Shaara kind of brings that. Don't you think he brings that out so well?
Yes. He does.
It's unpredictable, right? And that is one of those themes that keeps coming up, like from Kutuzov to the next Henry V. War is so unpredictable. You're foolish if you think you can control the outcome or know exactly how it's going to go, because once it starts going, it's beyond you.
And even when they're under heavy fire, just before the moment to fix bayonets, Chamberlain and his regiment is in so much trouble. There's such heavy fire. It would be so easy to just say, make a different decision instead of this incredibly courageous decision. Yeah, raise the right flag. We're out of men. We're out of ammunition. No one can blame me. But instead, this little germ, a little dust piece of an idea comes, fix bayonets, attack downhill, and it swings the battle. It swings the war. It swings the future, of the nation.
Right. And it's incredible because it hinges on his action, right?
That's right.
Which is amazing.
Emily, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Who is the greatest soldier in American history? And that can include, of course, officers. I don't mean just, guys in the trench, guys in planes. Who is the greatest soldier in American history? There are so many choices for that, because you would want to say General Washington. Yep.
You would want to say Robert E. Lee.
Yep.
Robert E. Lee is acknowledged by both North and South as a great general and fighter. I have a tender spot in my heart for George Patton because I had to watch Patton every Christmas with my father.
He loved the movie Patton?
He did. He loved the movie Patton. So I'd say Patton.
How about Audie Murphy?
Who is that?
Audie Murphy? First World War?
What?
Made a movie out of him? Oh, yeah. Come on.
Wait. Sergeant York.
Sergeant York is another one.
From World War I. But is he the greatest? Right. Okay. And then I'm thinking of like MacArthur.
MacArthur, great one.
Eisenhower.
Emily, it's time for my hot take.
Okay, what's your hot take?
For me, the greatest soldier in American history is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain.
Oh, wow. That's a hot take.
Let me just read the accomplishments.
Said no one ever.
No one thinks that that's a hot, like, you don't think that's a particularly hot take?
No,
you just think it's kind of a lukewarm.
No, I said no one ever said that Joshua. I'm saying it's your perspective.
Oh, I see.
Because I don't think anybody else has ever said that.
For his day at Little Round Top, he receives the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Okay.
Shortly after Gettysburg, he's given a brigade, and he's shot. He's shot so badly through 2 hips, he's expected not to live. He returns. He's wounded 6 more times. He's cited for bravery in action 4 times. He's promoted to brigadier general by special orders of Ulysses S. Grant. And this is the crowning achievement of his military life. Of all of the Union officers in the Union Army, Grant selects Joshua Chamberlain to receive the Southern surrender at Appomattox in April 1865. This is the end of the war. And Emily, do you know what he does after Appomattox when he's receiving the Southern soldiers, their surrender? He calls on his troops, Union troops. Think about this. Union and Confederates have been fighting for years. The enmity between them is white hot. The enmity between the two parts of the nation, white hot. Chamberlain calls on his Union troops to stand at attention and to salute the Southern soldiers. Like,
that doesn't seem surprising to me.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, because of...
It enraged people back then. Enraged them. Yes.
You're just thinking, I mean, that's one of those crazy things. All the officer class knew each other, right? They'd all gone to school together. I mean, so many of them. I think...
Well, I thought it was really brave and honorable. Apparently, you are unimpressed by Joshua Chamberlain's great move.
It seems like that was the age that the last vestiges of chivalry still existed, right?
Okay,
so
that's fair.
Good on him.
I think that's fair.
On him. Yeah, that's really good.
A couple more things before we close. I love Joshua Chamberlain, so I'm going on about him. He returns to Maine. He's elected governor by the largest majority in the history of the state, and he returned to office 3 times.
Wow, good for him.
He's elected afterward president of Bowdoin University.
Yeah,
where he teaches, Emily, except for mathematics, every single subject in the curriculum.
That's awesome. It's Bowdoin College, Tim.
Bowdoin College, forgive me, Bowdoin, Bowdoin College, Bowdoin University. Mm-hmm. He receives the Medal of Honor for France for distinguished efforts in international education. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Joshua Chamberlain.
The greatest American soldier, according to Tim.
That's a strong case. That's a strong case. Hey, folks, we want to thank you so much for listening to Hot Takes on the Classics. We want to thank Clark Stefanik, our producer, True North, our platform. And of course, we always want to thank Tom Hagerman, who wrote and performed our music. Thanks for joining us, and join us again for this season on war.